I still remember the evening when I believed my future was finally waiting for me. You keep smiling like that, Sophia teased as she carried another small box into our apartment. And people will think you already won the lottery. I laughed and took the box from her hands. I already did. Oh, she raised an eyebrow. I have you. She rolled her eyes, but the soft blush on her face made me feel like the luckiest man alive. You always know what to say, she whispered. I only tell the truth. She stepped closer and rested her head against my shoulder. For a few quiet seconds, I forgot about overdue bills, my old car that barely started every morning, and the endless hours I spent working as a financial consultant. This place is tiny, she said, looking around our apartment. It is, I admitted with a grin. But it's ours, at least until we save enough for something bigger. She smiled. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll never stop dreaming. I kissed her forehead. I promise. We had spent 4 years building those dreams together. We met when we were both struggling. She worked long shifts at a clothing store while I tried to build my career one client at a time. We celebrated every little victory like it was a holiday. Cheap pizza became our anniversary dinner. Walking through parks became our favorite date because it didn't cost anything. Back then, none of that mattered. Or at least I believed it didn't. A few weeks before our wedding, I visited my grandmother. She poured tea into 2 old cups and smiled gently. You look happy, she said. I am. I can see it. I laughed. Sophia and I finally picked the wedding flowers. She wants white roses everywhere. Grandmother nodded slowly. White roses are beautiful. They're her favorite. She studied my face for a moment before speaking again. Adrian, may I ask you something? Of course. If everything disappeared tomorrow, your money, your job, It wasn't fake, but it wasn't the smile that had carried us through years of struggle. It felt distant, like she was standing beside me while her heart had already wandered somewhere else. The next morning, she rushed into the kitchen. Adrian, are you busy this Saturday? She asked. I plan to meet a new client, but I can move it. What? My friend Chloe invited me to a charity gala. A gala? I asked with a grin. That sounds fancy. It is. A lot of successful business owners will be there. I chuckled. Then I'll definitely be underdressed. She hesitated before answering. Actually, Chloe only has one invitation. I forced a smile. So, I'm staying home. I'm sorry. It's okay, I said. Go and enjoy yourself. She kissed my cheek quickly. Thank you for understanding. After she left, I stared at the engagement ring on the table. Something felt different. That evening she returned much later than expected. You waited up? She asked. I wanted to hear about your night. It was amazing, she said excitedly. You should have seen the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, luxury cars everywhere. I smiled. I'm glad you had fun. And I met someone interesting. I looked at her. Oh, his name is Victor Langford. The name meant nothing to me. Who is he? A millionaire. She laughed nervously. I know how that sounds. So, what happened? He was one of the event sponsors. Chloe introduced us. And he was surprisingly friendly. I nodded. That's nice. He said I have excellent taste. You do. He even remembered my name before I left. I laughed. Sounds like he's good with people. He owns hotels, investment companies, and a yacht. I raised an eyebrow. A yacht. She smiled. A huge one. I reached for her hand. Money can't buy happiness. She looked at me for a long moment. No, she whispered, but it can buy comfort. The answer stayed with me long after we went to bed. Over tea. One evening, I walked into the living room and asked, what's making you so happy? She quickly locked her screen. Nothing. I laughed. That doesn't look like nothing. It's just messages. From Chloe? She hesitated for a second. Among others. I didn't think much about it. Trust had always been the foundation of our relationship. A few days later, she stood in front of the mirror, trying on a new dress. What do you think? She asked. You look beautiful. She smiled. Victor recommended this boutique. I paused. You've been talking to him? We've exchanged a few messages. What about? She shrugged. Life, business, nothing serious. I forced a smile. I'm glad you're making friends. She stepped closer and adjusted my tie. You're not jealous, are you? Should I be? She laughed. Of course not. Her answer sounded reassuring, but something inside me refused to settle. The following Friday, I surprised her with dinner at our favorite little restaurant. When I arrived, she was already there, but her attention stayed on her phone. "You've barely looked at me," I joked as I sat down. "I'm sorry." She slipped the phone into her purse. "I've just been busy." The waiter brought our meals. I raised my glass. "To our wedding." She lifted hers a second later. "To our future." There was a strange pause before she spoke. "Adrian." "Yeah. Have you ever wished your life had turned out differently?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you had more opportunities, more money, more success." I smiled gently. "I already feel successful." She looked confused. "You do?" "I wake up beside the woman I love every morning. That's success to me." She lowered her eyes. "You always make everything sound simple." "Because it is." "No," she whispered. "It isn't." I reached across the table and held her hand. "We've survived every hard season together." She slowly pulled her hand away. "But what if We still lived under the same roof, but it no longer felt like home. One evening, I found Sophia standing on the balcony, staring at the city lights. I walked beside her. "You're quiet." "So are you," she replied. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About us." She crossed her arms. "Adrian, do you ever feel like we're standing still while everyone else keeps moving?" I looked at the traffic below. "I think we're moving. Maybe just more slowly." She shook her head. "I don't want slowly anymore." I turned toward her. "What happened to the woman who told me she'd be happy as long as we were together?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a deep breath. "People change. So do dreams." Her words felt like tiny cracks spreading through my heart. I tried to smile. Dreams can change without leaving the people who helped build them. She looked away. "You make everything sound romantic." "Because I love you." "I know. Then why does it feel like you're pulling away from me?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "I'm just confused." "About me?" "About life." I reached for her hand, but she slipped it into her coat pocket before I could touch it. That small movement hurt more than I wanted to admit. The next afternoon, I stopped by her office with flowers. The receptionist smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir. Sophia already left." "Left?" "About 20 minutes ago." "Did she say where she was going?" She hesitated. "I think she mentioned lunch." "With friends?" "I'm not sure." I thanked her and walked outside. As I crossed the street, I froze. Across the road, I saw Sophia climbing into a black luxury car. Victor Langford stepped out first. He wore an expensive suit and greeted her with a confident smile. Then he opened the passenger door like she was someone special. Sophia laughed. It was the same laugh I used to hear every day. I stood there, unable to move. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Sophia. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophia laughing as she stepped into Victor's luxury car. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation, but my heart refused to accept another lie. The next morning, she greeted me with a cheerful smile. "Good morning." "Morning," I replied. She poured herself a cup of coffee. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much." "Too much work." I looked at her for a moment. "You could say that." She reached for her purse. "I'll probably be home late again." "Another busy day?" She nodded. "Yes." I took a slow breath. "Sophia, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy with me?" Her smile faded. "Why would you ask that?" "Just answer me." She looked down at the floor before speaking. "I don't know anymore." Those 5 words shattered something inside me. I thought we were building a future together. "So did I," she whispered. "What changed?" She stayed silent. I stepped closer. "Is this about Victor?" Her eyes widened. "You know his name?" "You've mentioned him enough." "He understands the life I want." "And what life is that?" "A life where I don't have to count every dollar." I nodded slowly. "So money matters more than everything we've been through?" "It's not that simple." "Then make me understand." Tears filled her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "I'm tired of struggling, Adrian." "We're almost there." "You always say that." "Because it's true." "When?" she asked. "Next year? 5 years? 10. I'll keep working until I give you everything." She shook her head. "I don't want promises anymore." The room fell silent. Then she slowly reached into her purse. My heart began to race. She opened her hand. My engagement ring rested in her palm. I can't do this anymore. I stared at the ring without speaking. She placed it in my hand. You deserve someone who believes in your dreams. And you, I need someone who can give me mine. I closed my fingers around. I buried myself in work during the day and stared at empty walls at night. Every morning I expected to wake up and discover it had all been a terrible dream. Every morning reality returned. The apartment felt different without her. The silence felt different. Even breathing felt different. One evening my phone buzzed while I reviewed financial reports. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the sender. Sophia Bennett. For a moment my heart betrayed me. I thought maybe she wanted to come home. Maybe she had realized she made a mistake. Maybe she still loved me. I opened the message. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to personally invite you to my wedding next Saturday. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it hurt too much to do anything else. A second message appeared. I think it's important for both of us to move forward peacefully. Move forward. The words felt like a knife twisting deeper into an already open wound. I locked my phone and threw it onto the couch. A few minutes later, another call arrived. This time it was Grace. Tell me you didn't throw your phone. How do you always know? Because you're predictable when you're angry. I sighed. You heard about the wedding invitation? I did. And I think Sophia is trying to convince herself she made the right decision. I sat down heavily. Then why invite me? Because guilt makes people do strange things. I rubbed my forehead. I'm not going. You should. I looked toward the window. Why would I willingly watch the woman I plan to marry someone else? Because sometimes the truth hides inside painful moments. That sounds like something Daniel would say. Grace laughed. Maybe I've been spending too much time with your brother. The mention of Daniel made me smile slightly. He's probably going to tell me revenge is unhealthy again. He's not wrong. I'm not planning revenge. Good. I remained silent. The morning of the wedding arrived far sooner than I wanted. I stood in front of my closet, staring at the only black suit I owned. For several minutes, I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Finally, I picked it up. As I adjusted my tie, I looked into the mirror. You can still stay home, I whispered to myself. My reflection offered no answer. Instead, I grabbed my car keys and drove toward the Grand Hotel where the ceremony was being held. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Valets hurried from one vehicle to another. Fresh white roses decorated the entrance. Large crystal chandeliers shined through the glass walls. Everything looked like something from a movie. I took a deep breath. You can do this, I told myself. The moment I stepped inside, I heard people talking. I heard Victor spent over $2 million on this wedding. Only Victor could throw a celebration this extravagant. Sophia is so lucky. Lucky. The word echoed painfully inside my head. I quietly walked toward the back of the ballroom, hoping nobody would notice me. For a while, nobody did. Then I heard a familiar voice. Adrian. I turned around. Olivia stood behind me. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't smiling. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said softly. I almost didn't. She looked at me with guilt in her eyes. I'm so sorry. You don't have anything to apologize for. Edo. You never betrayed me. No, but she's my sister. I forced a small smile. You can't control someone else's choices. Tears gathered in her eyes. I tried to stop her. You did. I begged her to think carefully. What did she say? Olivia lowered her head. She said love doesn't pay bills. Those words hit harder than I expected. I nodded slowly. That sounds like her. I am ashamed. Don't be. I always believed you were family. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You still are. She hugged me without saying another word. For the first TI, the guests smiled and applauded. But all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. Sophia blinked first. Then she turned toward the aisle and continued walking as if nothing had happened. I lowered my eyes. So, this is really the end, I whispered to myself. The ceremony began. Victor stood confidently beneath a magnificent arch covered with white roses. He wore an expensive tuxedo and smiled like a man who believed he had already won everything. The officiant looked at both of them. We are gathered here today to celebrate love. I almost laughed. Love. That word had once belonged to Sophia and me. Now it sounded unfamiliar. Victor gently took Sophia's hands. "You look breathtaking," he said. She smiled. "Thank you. I promise I'll give you everything you've ever dreamed of. I know you will." Every sentence felt like another cut across my heart. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out before they exchanged another promise. But my feet refused to move. Instead, I remained hidden near the back of the ballroom. The officiant continued. "Marriage is built on trust, loyalty, and commitment." I quietly closed my eyes. Those words reminded me of the promises Sophia and I had once made in our tiny apartment. We'll always choose each other, no matter how hard life becomes. Those promises now felt like memories from another lifetime. The officiant smiled. "Do you, Victor Langford, take Sophia Bennett to be your lawful wife?" "Edo." His answer came without hesitation. The officiant turned toward Sophia. "And do you, Sophia Bennett, take Victor Langford to be your lawful husband?" She looked into Victor's eyes. "Edo." The words echoed through the ballroom. I slowly released the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The rings were exchanged. Applause filled the room. Then came the words I'd feared most. "You may kiss the bride." Victor stepped forward. Sophia smiled. They kissed while cameras flashed for me. Wanted to chase after him, but the wedding reception had already become louder. A live band started playing, and guests gathered around the dance floor. I stayed where I was, holding a glass of water that I had no intention of drinking. A waiter walked past me. "Sir, would you like champagne?" I smiled politely. "No, thank you. Enjoy the evening." I almost laughed. Enjoy? That was impossible. A few minutes later, Victor climbed onto the stage with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced proudly, "thank you for celebrating the happiest day of my life." The crowd applauded. I've always believed success means having the courage to take what you want. More applause followed. Then he turned towards Sophia. "And today I married the most beautiful woman in this room." Sophia smiled as everyone cheered. Victor continued. "I promise her a lifetime of luxury, unforgettable vacations, beautiful homes, and everything money can buy." The guests raised their glasses. He quietly lowered mine. Money. That was the center of every promise he made. Not love, not trust, not sacrifice, only wealth. I noticed Sophia looking around the ballroom. For a brief moment, her eyes found me again. Her smile weakened. She quickly looked away. I wondered if she was remembering our tiny apartment, our cheap dinners, our late-night walks through the park, or perhaps those memories no longer mattered. I turned toward the exit. Maybe it was finally time to leave. Before I could take another step, someone called my name. Music echoed through the hall as crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors. Guests laughed, toasted the newlyweds, and filled every corner with celebration. I stood among them, yet I had never felt more alone. A server walked past with silver trays. "Sir, dessert?" I smiled politely. "No, thank you." My appetite had disappeared long before I arrived. As I reached the entrance, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. "Adrian, wait." I turned around. Sophia stood a few feet away, still wearing her wedding dress. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't sure either." She lowered her eyes. "Thank you for coming. I didn't come to celebrate." "I know." Another heavy silence settled between us. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. "I never wanted to hurt you." I looked at her quietly. "But you did." "I am sorry." "I believe you." She looked surprised. "You do?" "Yes." But an apology doesn't erase what happened. A tear formed in her eye. "I hope one day you'll forgive me." I took a slow breath. "I already forgive you." She stared at me. "Then, why do I feel like I've still lost something?" "Because forgiveness and consequences are different." She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the ballroom where Victor was laughing with his business partners. "He'll take good care of me," she whispered, almost as if she were trying to convince herself. "I hope he does." "You really mean that?" "I don't wish you pain, Sophia." She smiled sadly. "You've always been kinder than I deserved." Before I could reply, Victor's voice echoed from inside. "Sophia, everyone's waiting for you." She glanced toward the ballroom, then back at me. "I should go." I nodded. "I guess this is goodbye." She hesitated. "Goodbye, Adrian." She slowly walked away without looking back. This time, I didn't ask her to stay. The chapter of my life that included us had F. Daniel's words kept repeating in my mind. Come to the family office on Monday. It's time you learned the truth. When Monday morning arrived, I stood outside the Hayes family office, staring at the tall glass building. I had visited it before, but only for small meetings. I had never imagined it held answers about my own life. As I walked inside, the receptionist smiled. Good morning, Mr. Hayes. I paused. Mr. Hayes? She nodded politely. We've been expecting you. Before I could ask another question, Daniel stepped out of the elevator. There you are, he said. I've been here less than 30 seconds. He smiled. And you've already noticed something strange. I have a lot of questions. I know. We entered the elevator together. Neither of us spoke until the doors opened onto the top floor. Daniel led me into a large conference room. Grace was already waiting with several thick folders spread across the table. She looked up and smiled. Right on time. I sat across from her. I hope one of you finally explains what's happening. Daniel closed the door. Today we will. Grace slid the first folder toward me. Open it. I looked at the title. Hayes Family Trust. I frowned. I've heard Grandma mention this for years. You've heard about it, Grace replied, but you've never seen it. I slowly opened the folder. Inside were legal agreements, ownership certificates, and financial records. None of it made sense. I looked at Daniel. What am I supposed to be seeing? He folded his hands. Your name. I looked down again. My heartbeat slowed, then it suddenly raced. Every few pages, I found the same signature. Adrian Hayes. I blinked. This can't be right. It is, Daniel answered. I've never signed these. You signed the original trust documents years ago. I don't remember that. You were 21. I searched my memory. I remember Grandma asking me to sign papers after my college graduation. Done? I looked down at the documents again, hoping they would somehow change. They didn't. I finally broke the silence. So, everything Victor has been showing the world belongs to the trust. Grace nodded. Yes, and the trust belongs to me. It does. I leaned back and let out a slow breath. I don't even know how I'm supposed to feel. Daniel gave me a calm smile. You don't have to decide today. I spent weeks believing I had lost everything. You lost someone, he said quietly. You didn't lose yourself. His words settled heavily in my chest. I looked at the first page again. If Grandma wanted me to know, why didn't she tell me sooner? Daniel answered without hesitation. Because she believed wealth reveals character. She wanted you to build yours before discovering hers. I couldn't argue with that. Grace opened another folder. There's something else you need to see. What now? Victor's financial reports. She pushed several papers toward me. Red markings covered nearly every page. These numbers don't look good. They aren't. What happened? He borrowed aggressively. To expand his companies? Yes. And to maintain the image of unlimited success. I frowned. So the luxury lifestyle wasn't entirely real? It was financed, Grace replied. That's different. Exactly. I rubbed my temples. No wonder he always looked desperate to close another deal. Daniel folded his arms. Success built on debt often demands another success just to survive. I slowly nodded. And if the borrowing stops, the illusion begins to crack. I turned another page. There are unpaid obligations everywhere. Grace pointed to one section. Look here. I followed her finger. Who is Ethan Brooks? Victor's chief financial advisor. The same man who prepared these reports? Yes. I kept reading. These totals don't match. They don't because they were changed. I looked up. You mean intentionally? Grace spent the rest of the afternoon reading every document Grace placed in front of me. The more I read, the heavier my heart became. Finally, I closed the last folder. I need some air. Daniel nodded. We'll be here. I stepped onto the balcony outside the conference room. The city stretched below me, alive with traffic and noise, yet everything felt strangely quiet inside my head. A few minutes later, Grace joined me. You've been quiet. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I leaned against the railing. I keep asking myself the same question. Which one? If I had known the truth earlier, would Sophia have stayed? Grace looked at me for a long moment. Do you really want the answer? I'm not sure. Then don't ask until you're ready. I smiled faintly. You always know how to avoid giving a direct answer. I learned from good lawyers. Despite everything, I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. Grace smiled. That's better. It doesn't change anything. No, it still hurts. I know. I looked toward the skyline. I loved her. I know. I would have given her everything. You already tried. I turned toward her. Maybe I wasn't enough. Grace shook her head immediately. Don't do that. Do what? Blame yourself for someone else's choice. I sighed. It's difficult not to. She folded her arms. Let me ask you something. Go ahead. If someone only stays because of your money, is that love? No. If someone leaves because another person appears richer, is that loyalty? I lower my eyes. No. Then what exactly did you lose? Her question stayed with me. After several seconds, I answered quietly. I lost the future I imagined. Grace nodded. That's different from losing your worth. I knew she was right. Accepting it was another matter. My phone vibrated. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. Should I answer? Grace shrugged. You're Coic.